questions. I'd rather keep it a buck, 100 if you ask me. I was trying to pay the bills just like last week. I was trying to sell a deal just like last week. Trying to run plays and run it up like the mathletes. It's in my DNA to have hope and make a way.
Damn, I'm a Minnesota Viking now. Like
fade away, miss me with the hate, and now, bruh, not today.
Back again with another episode, man, on Perfecting Progression. Very excited, man. This is a special episode with one of my guys, close friends, one of my brothers. But you know, this episode here will be called "Defying the Odds." And you know, as I kind of talk about this episode, definitely want to give a well-needed introduction to the special guest that I have on my platform. He's an alum of Eden Prairie High School, University of Minnesota. Was a part of the 2019 NFL Draft. Was picked in round five, pick 157, and has played on NFL teams, New York Jets, the Houston Texans, and now the Minnesota Vikings. Definitely glad to have him on my platform. This is a big one. So welcome, Blake Cashman. Thank you for being on the platform.
Thank you for having me, man.
Sure.
Excited to chop it up with you.
For sure. So, again, this is going to be a big one, man. I think the title alone, Defying the Odds, is going to tell more about Blake's, journey, through where he started and where he's at currently right now. We're going to talk a little bit about, our connection and how we kind of, came across, getting to know one another, becoming friends, and still knowing each other now. Of course, that was at the University of Minnesota, but yeah, let's tap in, man. I'm just super excited for you to be on this platform, bro. This is really a big one, and I think this is really aligning with the brand itself, Perfecting Progression, of you essentially owning that. Like, you have gone through so many things, but just touching on, just some of our connection history. Again, former teammates at the University of Minnesota, and I guess just from there, like, kind of going into that, I guess we can kind of go into somewhat of your background, your childhood upbringing, because I met you at University of Minnesota, but kind of walk me through some of your background, like, high school or even before high school. I kind of want to know you from that perspective, because I know you only from college and on up. But again, we've been having a great bond and having a great friendship, but I definitely wanted you to tap in a little bit more from your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I grew up with a great childhood. Yep. I grew up split family. My parents got divorced when I was really young. Mm-hmm. Me being the oldest child, I think I was sometimes caught in the middle of that a little bit, but it almost was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to mature and grow up a little bit quicker. Mm-hmm. Definitely learned how to handle more responsibility, keep myself and my siblings accountable. But I was a busy kid, man. I was plugged into everything, doing a lot of different camps, activities, sports. I mean, I played it all growing up.
What is it all?
Football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer.
Oh, yeah, you did it all.
Even tried lacrosse for a little bit, but
was this all through like in high school, up to the high school level?
No, this was all like
before,
up until high school.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I had a lot of fun, exploring different sports, what I was, interested in, what I was best at.
Yep.
And then by the time I got to high school, you kind of have to pick two sports. It seems like nowadays kids are picking like just one sport, but I found my love with football and basketball, and did that throughout high school. And obviously, for people that know Eden Prairie High School, like especially the time I was there, very big school. Yep. Very good academics and athletics. So it was a very exciting time in high school.
And I guess, you mentioned one thing that I wanted you to talk a little bit about, because I see it with just being in coaching within youth sports, and some kids just kind of being, to a degree, one-dimensional. I guess, either they don't want to play multiple sports, and if they are playing, multiple sports, they only look at themselves as one side person. I guess what I'm getting at is if I have a few football players, they only think or look at themselves as only an offensive player. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I don't know what you played in high school at Eden Prairie, but I know for the most part basketball kind of helps out with football. But at the same time, I want to play everywhere. I'm not just looking at myself as I play safety or I'm a DB. I want to play everything so I can maximize my development. And I think a lot of kids probably don't see that in the early stages, but I guess I kind of wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about that, because a lot of the kids might say, I look at Blake Cashman and he's playing linebacker, but you probably was playing multiple sports and different sides of the ball. And, some kids might think that's not important, but I wanted you to talk about how important that is for development.
Yeah, I mean, I see it both ways. I feel like nowadays there's so much training and position-specific skills training within that sport, and just for kids to stay competitive at the top of their game. Like, that's why you see a lot of the youth focusing on, just one side of the ball or just one position. So I see the benefits of it, but I do believe that growing up, it's important just to be an athlete and to expose yourself to different sports, different positions, because a lot of those skills, like what you can do in basketball and football, they're transferable, and you can learn something from doing both. And also just the training aspect, the physicality aspect, it, I think, helps your body. You see even professional athletes do this. They do a lot of cross training. They do different things. I know for like a defensive lineman or a defensive end in the NFL, a lot of times they do like boxing.
For hand technique.
Exactly. So like cross training, that's all very important. But to get to your question, like I played it all. I obviously, was a better athlete than most of my peers growing up. So I always wanted the ball in my hand or be in a position to get the ball. But, I also, learned, I feel like with the responsibility of being one of the better athletes is like you have to carry your team or help your team where, where the needs are. So, like, if there's a game where, like in basketball, like, I can't be the one scoring the points. I'm going against Amir Coffey, who's with the LA Clippers right now, who he was played against my rival high school with Hopkins. So I have to play my best defensive game. That's where the team needs me. So I think, you start to figure it out more as you grow and mature. But I think that's what is important about being a good player, a leader, is knowing where your team needs you.
Facts. So, as we kind of just talked a little bit about, navigating through sports, I guess up to the high school level and then narrowing it down to pretty much basketball and football. I guess now my question for you would be, like, where did the love for, because I feel like you have love for sports, period, but where did that love for football come from? And like where did it start? Like, did it start at a earlier age before high school, or did you just know, like, once you got to high school, like, I think this is kind of what I want to do, and this is kind of like where I want to go, in my journey?
Well, my love for football came at a very young age. I mean, probably when I was, 5 years old. My dad's a big football fan, a big Vikings fan, and he got my brother and I into sports, got us into football. I remember we would be watching football on Sundays with him, learning the game, throwing the football around the backyard. But it wasn't until third grade where I grew up where you can start playing organized tackle football with, you putting on the pads for the first time, and immediately just fell in love with the game, just the ultimate team sport and working together with your teammates, the physicality of the game. It was just a lot of fun, and it almost felt like second nature to me. In high school, though, when I picked football and basketball, football I was always naturally better at. I tend to put more of my time and attention into it. But when I came to making the decision to play sports in college, I was torn a little bit because I didn't necessarily want to give up basketball. And I was so close to going to the University of St. Thomas, just down the road, to play football and basketball.
Didn't know that. Did not know that, brother. And I actually seen the Vikings, going into March Madness. They made a posting of just all the players that, played in high school. I seen you on there. dribbling the basketball. I'm like, my guy Cashman out here, like he's a hooper too. So, I definitely didn't know that, but I can definitely see it, especially with the state of Minnesota. If I'm being honest, when I first got here, I didn't look at the state of Minnesota as a football state, but I for sure looked at it as a basketball state. So for you to kind of give me that insight, I do think like being torn and having the opportunity to play both would make all the sense in the world to me. Like, man, like, and that's what we're about to get to now. But I guess before we get to the walk-on piece, I guess more so of the recruitment in high school. So pretty much you're saying you had an opportunity like a scholarship, or how did that look? So pretty much, how did recruitment look for you in high school? And then we're gonna go right into
yeah, of course, it's a good question because the smaller schools, they tend to, it's not like Minnesota where we went, where you're on a full ride scholarship, getting everything taken care of. At that level, they can give an academic scholarship. And then, at the Division II level, which I looked at going to Minnesota State Mankato as well, because I've always had a pretty good football program. They can only give like a half ride, so they can just cover half the expenses. But, where I was conflicted was, do I want to give up basketball? Do I want to just focus on football? Because, my ultimate dream was to be in the NFL. Of course, I wanted to play professional. What kid doesn't? But where was I going to get the most opportunity and benefit the most in my time at the next level? Because, of course, making the decision to walk on at Minnesota, I had my doubts. Like, is this going to be a waste of time? Am I going to ride pine for 4 years and not get much out of the experience? And I'm too competitive not to play. So I took a long time to make my decision. Spent a lot of time talking with smaller schools, figuring out where I wanted to go. And then it wasn't until I had a long conversation with Mike Sherrills, linebacker coach at the time in Minnesota, who I still have a really good relationship with today.
Shout out Coach Sherrills, man.
Yeah, shout out Coach Sherrills. And, it hit me right away that, like, I could see that he believed in me, which gave me confidence in myself. And I wanted to take that risk because the lingering thought I had in my head was, if I go to a smaller school, I'm sure it would have been great. I would have enjoyed it. I would have played well, loved it. But I knew once I graduated, I would look back and say, well, what if I would have taken a chance on myself and walked on at Minnesota?
And this is where this story gets really, really interesting, and I think the audience will really love your story. And I was having a conversation with Dawson, before we started, but I told him, man, I'm like, man, as soon as I got to the University of Minnesota, I came in with the DB group, and you were with the DBs at first. And he was like, I didn't even know that. But just to understand, like, and I was telling him, because, my journey going from Minnesota, going to JUCO, going back to FCS, man, when I came in the University of Minnesota, my dad played in the league for about 2 years. I was more so like, of course, as you know, like when you're the guy at your high school, it's like, coming from where I come from in the Midwest area, Michigan, I didn't know anything about any other avenue other than D1, D2, D3. I didn't know about JUCO. But at the same time, when I did go to University of Minnesota, I'm like, you need to be here to go to the NFL. That's how I was thinking, like, as a freshman. I'm like, I'm behind Demarius Travis, Eric Murray, Brian Body. We was stacked. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure, because at first, I remember when I redshirted, I looked at it like, I didn't even know what a red shirt was. I was just so much into, like, man, like, I felt disrespected. I didn't know what this year was. And I didn't know exactly what I'm getting at is, like, putting stuff on film, them scouts is going to find you anywhere in the country. I didn't know it at that time. But I only bring that up is because, the journey of what you just told yourself of saying, I could have went to play, 2 sports at St. Thomas and still maximize your opportunities there and still been at where you're at currently right now. But you took a risk on yourself. You betted on yourself to say, I'm going to still go to the University of Minnesota and I'm going to still walk on and I'm going to go through, whatever comes with it. But before I want you to kind of talk about it. So, yeah, making that decision to come to the University of Minnesota, I guess walk us through that, because again, you started off in the defensive backs group. A lot of people may not know that, but I just kind of wanted you to walk us through that journey and kind of take us through the mental fortitude of being a walk-on.
Yeah, I'll hit on that real quick, but I found what you said interesting, just talking about how you have to redshirt. Like, I think that's where a lot of athletes going from high school to college and even college to the pros, that transitional period can be, it can stress people out, overwhelm them mentally, because, you were the guy in high school and then you were the guy in college. But then when you get to the next level, sometimes you have to be patient and, earn your stripes, and earn that opportunity to, get to the playing time that you want and feel like you deserve. But that's where it's important to stay resilient and patient so you can develop and, mold into the player that you want to be at that next level. But as for me, when I decided to walk on at Minnesota, Minnesota was very clear, like, we don't have any scholarships to give. They didn't recruit me till late, like halfway through my senior year. It was really towards the end of the football season. But they said, we're going to bring you in as a safety. So in high school, I went from corner to safety to like a rover safety to eventually
corner. Cash?
Yes, I was a big corner, man.
That is crazy.
Yeah. But then I ended up playing linebacker by the time I was at the end of my senior season. And so I'm like, I'm going to take this opportunity and go to Minnesota, be a safety, and see what happens. And I remember the first training camp, freshman year, Coach Kill had walked up to me. And at the time I came in, I was like, I think I was bigger than Trav. Like, I was like 215. I was like the already the biggest safety. And Coach Kill said, "Son, I'm gonna make you a linebacker."
Really?
This is before we finished week 1 of training camp.
Because I was trying to remember when exactly did that transition happen. I remember it, but I just don't remember the time.
It didn't officially start until we got to spring ball, that first spring ball. But my freshman year, they weren't putting me in at safety in the game. I was just playing special teams my freshman year.
And that's what I want you to talk about too. Not to cut you off. Me and Dawson talked about that a lot. Just if I would have had that drilled in my head of like how important special teams is, like that, I'm gonna have you talk about that because you're at the level where you at now. But that's so important just for young athletes, because we come in and we say we only want to play defense or we only want to play offense. But if you got that mentality of just saying I'm gonna get on the field anywhere, that's what's a use to a professional team, of finding your way.
Absolutely. But, I was thrilled because, like I said, I'm competitive and I didn't want to redshirt. I didn't want to sit on the bench. I wanted to be playing on game day and help our team any way I could. And that was playing on special teams and me seeing the field and getting some action, like, so be it. Like, sign me up. But, then after the freshman season of just playing special teams, I was put at linebacker, and that's kind of when Savell changed up the defense a little bit. I think we took some like 3-4 style defense from the defensive coordinator, or the old defensive coordinator at the time at Wisconsin. We had all those crazy sub packages, had linebackers and safeties blitzing from all over the field. It was actually a very fun defense when I look back at.
I feel like he made it more simple.
Yeah,
he made it more, because he definitely did have a lot of packages as our freshman year. And I'm like, it was so much stuff to learn, but at the same time, when I look back at it, I'm like, this is like elite level stuff that I feel like I can't speak for everybody else, but Savell, shout out to Coach Savell, he's definitely a guru.
Yes, he is.
I would definitely say that.
But then, got plugged in at linebacker, and I remember, like, it kind of felt a little foreign to me, like I wasn't necessarily comfortable.
Really?
It's easy in high school when you're just a good athlete, but at this level, like, just the speed of the game at the second level, it comes a lot quicker than at safety, unless you got like a fast receiver, pressing into your feet. But like, it was a big learning curve for me, and I remember I struggled a little bit that that second year, my sophomore year in training camp, and I remember having a real tough conversation with Mike Sherrills. He said, listen, like, we as a coaching staff, we see potential in you. We see the talent that you have, but you got to put it together, because I can't put you on the field if like you don't know everything that's going on. As a linebacker, you're the quarterback of the defense. You have to know everybody's job, and that was frustrating, because I felt like I was letting myself down, letting the coaches down a little bit. But I stayed resilient, kept plugging away at studying this new playbook, this new defense we kind of were putting in, and just took ownership of the role that I was given. And sure enough, as the season went on, like, I started starting on some of those sub packages, and by the end of the season, I ended up having a really good year that kind of, I think, propelled me into the next 2 years of my time at Minnesota.
Yep. And that's where we were going to go to, just turning, your dreams into fruition, becoming a starter. But you weren't officially a starter until, was it 2017 or was it 2018?
At Minnesota, it would have really been my senior year.
Senior year?
Because I was behind John.
Yep. Celestine.
Shout
out John.
My junior year.
Yep.
And they plugged me in where they could.
Yep.
And we at times rotated a little bit, but again, I was kind of used as like the third backer on any of our base defenses, and then when it came to like our sub packages, I was starting on those, but it wasn't until my senior year where I was like the guy starting on every package.
Facts. And the one thing I wanted to say too, just coming from a defensive back myself, one thing that I did see, right off the bat with Cash, he definitely was a crazy, like, you were a crazy athlete, bro. Like, I'm gonna be honest, but as a defensive back being in our group, we already knew you were kind of out of place, because if I'm being honest, like, we all, to a degree, we all were. I'm being honest, because I'm being honest.
I felt like I was in the wrong room. I did.
But I'm being honest, because it was certain things that, of course, all of us as DBs had to work on, with not being stiff, being fluent, all of that stuff. But to a degree, I'm being honest, like, you probably were the most stiff in like in the DB technique stuff. Yeah. And I'm like he an athlete, he could run, he could do all types of stuff, but I think all of us is kind of like I feel like he might be out of place. So when I do remember Salville coming into the meeting room when we was watching film, he was like, yeah, we made the decision to move Cass to backer. And we were kind of all like lit. Like, it was like, I think that's probably where he's gonna like excel at the most, and that's what I want to ask you too. So before we go into your senior season as a starter, was it the year before, was it your senior season that you offered the scholarship?
It was after the sophomore season, that spring. I got, because remember we played Washington State in the bowl game. I got defensive MVP, and remember Jeff Jones, our director of player personnel or whatever. Man, I was, after that game, I was coming off a good game, coming off a pretty good sophomore year. Feeling good about everything, but I was concussed. I got concussed in that game, and I'm getting on the plane ride back here to Minneapolis, and Jeff Jones pulled me aside and said, we're going to need you to come to campus a little bit early before the spring semester starts. We have some scholarship papers for you to sign.
Super authentic person, Jeff Jones,
He's
man.
the best. He is the best.
I can just only imagine that, because he's just the same throughout. I can just only imagine that moment of him telling you, like, yeah, you got to come to the camp. Like, he's not showing like any crazy emotion of giving it away. It's just
very calm.
Very calm.
And I was lit though. I was like, this is crazy what I've been working for, and I'm feeling good, and I'm going home telling my folks like what I was told. I'm gonna be on scholarship, and then. Then they made the coaching change. Fleck came in, and with the new coaching staff, they're trying to figure everything out, figure out who their guys are, who they're going to bring in. And, that kind of derailed getting the scholarship right away. And that was kind of like the first conversation I had with Fleck when I met him was like, hey, I was promised a scholarship. Like, what's up with that? And, you know, he had to work through his things. And it wasn't until I think it was April is when he announced that I was on scholarship. So it took some patience. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was very upset. But again, like, I feel like that's been my entire journey is, you know, there's these highs and lows, but staying resilient, staying patient, and, you know, just keep your head down and keep working, and the good things will happen.
Facts. And then, you know, as we, you know, transition, talking a little bit more about you starting your senior season in 2018, just giving you some recognition here. You know, you received the award of second team All Big Ten in 2018. Just, I guess, before we go into the NFL perspective, kind of talk a little bit how you felt about, you know, you already talked about it, but how you felt about going into now that you have you're on scholarship, now you feel like your hard work has been paying off. Now you're going into your senior season. Now you probably feel even more with a chip on your shoulder. You know, like, I really have to prove it, because now that I'm on scholarship, I'm not gonna let anybody think that this is fluke. Like, so going into your senior season, I just kind of wanted you to talk a little bit, you know, how that went for you. What was your mindset like? And just from there, man, like.
Yeah, well,
you know.
Complacency isn't in my DNA. I'm always, you know, looking for room of improvement. And, you know, I'm a big believer, like, once you reach one mountain peak, there's always a whole nother mountain waiting. And, you know, I got the scholarship, you know, great, pat myself on the back, but that's not good enough anymore. Like, I want to be the guy on defense. I want to make a name for myself in the Big Ten. I want to go play in the NFL, all those things. So there was still so much work to be done. And I think when you do come into success, there's also responsibility that comes with it. So like when you work so hard to get to a position to be, hey, I'm a starting linebacker now in the Big Ten, like, your teammates are counting on you to play well. You know, you got the school, the state behind you, expecting you to play well. So you have to be on it, on your job, and know your assignments, because you don't want to be the guy that works so hard to get to the top and then you just get complacent, you fall off. Like that's something I feel like when people find themselves in that position, like, that's a regret you live with the rest of your life.
Facts. And you know, with all of that, man, you know, definitely hard work paying off. You know, being a walk-on, then being able to kind of get on scholarship, then becoming a, you know, starter your senior season, and then right after the 2018 season, preparing for you know your pro day, preparing for the National Football League, and, you know, being able to be drafted, you know, in the 2019 draft. And like I said, Cass was drafted in round 5, pick, you know, 157 to the New York Jets. But kind of talk a little bit about just hearing, you already know, man, just that's a dream for any kid. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, with just, of course, a dream is being on an NFL team, you know, getting signed, but hearing your name, that's what I wanted you to talk a little bit about, like, how that made you feel from your journey from being a walk-on to everything that you went through, coaching change, and now it's just Blake Cashman, pick 157, New York Jets.
I mean, the whole journey, I think, like, when I look back at it, like, I'm blessed to have that journey, because it's made me who I am. But like you said, it's always kept a chip on my shoulder. And, you know, of course, I was proud of myself and very appreciative of all the people that have helped get me to this spot. But I was actually right here in this room when I got the call. But the whole draft process, man, it's a little bit overwhelming, and it's stressful, because like, I was a guy that was projected, believe it or not, like rounds 3 through 6, which is a big range. And, you know, to be honest, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting drafted in the third round. If you get drafted in the 3rd round, like, you're expected to play some significant snaps on defense, but be like kind of like a starter that next year. I'm like, there's no way teams see me like that way. But it's hard not to get your hopes up. But I remember watching the draft, and it got to the third day where the fourth round started, and I'm getting calls from teams like Cincinnati was one of them, and they had called me like 4 times, and they said, hey, like, we really love your film. We love who you are as a person. We think you'd be a great fit. You'd be a guy that will excel as a Bengal, but we don't see you as a guy we're going to draft, but we're going to make you a priority after the draft and take care of you and bring you in. You're going to have great opportunity here. I'm like, man, we got 3 more rounds to go, and this is not what I want to hear.
Yep.
And I started receiving a couple other calls like that, and then nothing.
Yep.
Then the 5th round went, and that's when my draft class, that's when the linebackers really started getting drafted. And I started seeing people's names come up, and it was kind of defeating because, you know, I felt like I worked hard and had a really, really good combine.
Yep.
And I'm like, damn, all this work was for nothing. Like I started like, you know, having a pity party a little bit. And sure enough, I told my family and friends that were here, I said, listen, like, it's a beautiful day here, spring day in Minneapolis. It's Saturday. Like, if I don't get a call in 15 minutes, let's just wrap this up. Let's all and just enjoy our day.
Yeah.
And literally, I think it was like 13 minutes had gone by, and I finally got a call from the Jets.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, we got the next pick in the draft. We're picking you.
Yep.
Congratulations, New York Jet. And I just remember, like, it was so, like, freeing, but, like, just all this weight was lifted off my shoulder. But then after that, you know, everything moves so quick, and then you're back to work quick.
Facts.
You know?
That's a dope story, bro. And I feel like I can understand, like, how much of a stress that can probably be of just going through the process, putting the time and effort in, making sure that you're at the top of your game so scouts can see that. And especially when you hear other guys probably getting picked before you, where you feel like, my tape was probably better than him. I performed better than him. But it's a part of the business, but at the same time, you still have to be patient. And that was one of the things that you mentioned, and that's one of the things that we're talking about throughout this journey of just making sure that you're being patient with capitalizing on your opportunity when your time is coming. And I think kind of as we talk about the space that we're in is really the transitional phases. It's the mindset shifts. That's exactly what we're kind of in right now. And we just talked about being drafted, really great blessing, one-of-one type of opportunity. But now I kind of want you to talk a little bit about the transition from college to pros, that speed. So I know you talked a little bit about moving from safety down to, the linebacker position, and how that, speed was somewhat of a different change, just because action is right there in your face, like, very quickly. But we always hear about it, a lot of us that play college football or even younger, just how fast the game is in the NFL. So I kind of wanted you to talk about how that transition was. Was it something that was just kind of a crazy shift, or was it something that you were already prepared for, but the only thing that probably was different was probably just the game speed? But let me not talk for you. I just wanted to set it up for you.
Yeah, it's a great question, and some people find it interesting when I say this. I think the transition from high school to college was harder than college to the pros. Mm-hmm. We kind of talked about it, like the University of Minnesota playing at Division I, Big Ten football. Yep. Like, that's a stepping stone. Almost nowadays become basically a developmental league to get you to the pros. So, the playbook's bigger in college than it is in high school. The game's faster. Physically, your body's changing so much.
One thing that I was going to mention, too, I think one thing that just hit me right now is that the coaching perspective from high school to college, a lot of us at certain high schools we don't have the, I don't want to say resources, but you probably help me, but there's a difference in high school coaching from college. Now, when you talk about college coaching from NFL some of that stuff is interchangeable because you got college guys going to NFL and you got NFL guys going to college. It's not too many people that are saying I'm going back to high school. You know, so that's probably why I think that speed is very, very different because once you get into college, I'm an athlete, I can do this, but now I'm going against Cashman now. Like, he's an athlete too, so now it's like he come from a different environment that he might have got taught some of the things that I didn't get taught. So now we're kind of playing that catch-up game. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly put. It's just when you get to the next level, at the professional level, it's the mental part of the game that I feel like increases in the workload. Like, you know, I knew the NFL was going to be a lot more work than college, but I wasn't necessarily expecting to have 10, 11-hour work days on a Wednesday and a Thursday.
Talk about it.
So, like, just the workload was an adjustment, but you got to keep in mind it is a job. It is a profession. And the difference between the NFL and college is, like, there's not much room for error. Like, you don't get a my bad or a redo. In college, you know, if you got 4 or 5 stars, you're heavily recruited, like, and it's taking you some time to figure out like the playbook or learning the scheme. Like, you're gonna get multiple chances. And the NFL, like, if you're a high draft pick, like, you might get a little bit more than some other guys, but at the end of the day, like, teams are going to look to move on. They don't have time to wait on you.
Facts. And you know, and again, I think this is just a great. You're just a great person to have on the platform because a lot of this stuff we're going to be talking about is just pushing through adversity, having perseverance. But what I'm going to get at now is that, you know, being drafted. You talked about, you know, the transition from college to pros. But now I want to talk a little bit about, because you were with the Jets, was it 3 years?
Yeah.
3 years. So before we talk about being traded to Houston, I wanted you to talk a little bit about, you know, just overcoming injuries, you know, being on IR, being off of IR, being back on it. And I think, you know, that can definitely play with the mindset, you know, being drafted and wanting to make sure that you're able to, one, like you just said, maximize your opportunities, and being hindered by injuries can, you know, derail that. You know, so I kind of wanted you to talk about that period of time of you going through, you know, your injuries and being patient and understanding that this is a business. But again, we're going to get to the part of once you got traded and then having a stellar year with Houston. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about just overcoming some of those injuries.
Yeah, I mean, my time in New York, like, I was a young player. You know, I learned a lot, and, you know, I even got it tatted on my arms as gratitude. And I think you got to be thankful for all the good, bad, and everything in between, because it's what makes you who you are. But, you know, you grow so much in pain and suffering and through adversity. There's always something you can take from it. And when I was in New York, drafted, I was going to play on special teams, and then I was our third down linebacker, and I'm great. You know what? This is a stepping stone to me being a full-time starter one day in the NFL. Well, sure enough, week 1 against Buffalo, C.J. Mosley, all-pro, Pro Bowl linebacker, great dude, tears his groin, done for the year. So now I have to step up, and I'm thrown into the starting role. To be honest, I probably wasn't ready for it. I firmly believe that the coaches didn't think I was ready for it, but the front office, they drafted me. You know, there was potential in me, so you know, they're like, we're going to put this guy out there, and he's going to have to learn and develop on the go.
Thanks.
And I saw myself each week when I was starting my rookie year. The game was slowing down more, it was getting easier, and I was getting better every week. Well, halfway through the year, I broke my shoulder. Now, that's a whole nother story. I would have liked to play through the injury. I had done it in college, but you know, the Jets saw me as a young player with potential. They're like, hey, let's just take care of this injury, IR him, shelve him for the year, and he'll be back ready to roll for year 2. So that was hard because things were going well for me, and I was starting. I didn't want to give up my starting spot, and I quickly realized when I got to the NFL, like, you know, if you're not healthy and available, like that just means someone's going to come in and take your job, and you might not get it back. And I didn't want to give up my job. But it was out of my hands, and I had to accept that. And so I grinded, got my shoulder healthy, and then I went into my second year, and I was a starting will linebacker throughout the off-season program, throughout training camp, and week one, I was a starting will. And I'm like, damn, I've arrived. I've done the damn thing. I'm a starter now. Well, the very first snap, again, we're playing Buffalo, at Buffalo, week one. And I was starting will linebacker, and I was only playing on punt. They had taken me out of special teams. They're like, we can't have our will linebacker, starting will linebacker, be playing on all special teams. First punt of the game, after our offense goes three and out, pulled my groin bad. And I had never experienced a soft tissue injury. I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I'm trying to run down the field. My leg is like dragging behind. I'm thinking like I'm cramping or something. And so I stay in, and I stayed in for about 3 plays. And Greg Williams, our defensive coordinator, starts calling like man coverage. And if we ever were in man coverage, I was the linebacker to go man the running back. And I look at Neville Hewitt, my dog. He's now going to year 11. Shout out, Nev. He's the Mike linebacker, green dot. He looks at me. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I got to go down. Something's up. So I go down, find out I have like a grade 2 groin. I'm going to miss some time. And, I missed like, I think 5 or 6 weeks, came back. My starting spot was gone. Someone else had already stepped in, was playing pretty good ball. So now I was back on special teams. Well, the young, stupid player in me probably rushed back just because I wanted to play. And, I got the mindset like I'm a macho man. I'm tough. Like I can just grind through any injury. Sure enough, I re-injure myself, have another soft tissue injury. And then I'm IR, done for the year. Come back, third year, new coaching staff. They look at me, hey, we got this linebacker. He showed pretty good film, he's got potential, but we can't rely on him because he's not healthy. So they didn't give me the opportunity in training camp. I was the second linebacker at every spot. They're like, hey, Cashman's a smart player, but can't stay healthy. So, he's gonna be a backup Mike, backup Will, backup Sam, but all these other guys are gonna get the opportunity. And sure enough, I think it was like late October, kind of getting towards the middle of the year, and I pull my groin again, and I get put on IR and done for the year. And so my second and third year in the league, I only played a total of 8 games in 2 years. That's not good for a young player. And, I remember going in the off season thinking like with all the injuries, new coaching staff in there, like my time's probably up as a Jet. I'm like, they're gonna look to probably trade me during preseason, see if they can get any value out of me, or else they're gonna cut me.
Right.
But they're gonna keep me until training camp preseason because they want to demonstrate to the rest of the league, hey, he's healthy again, he's flying around, he's playing good preseason ball. But sure enough, I was here in Minnesota visiting family. I was at my mom's house eating lunch, and I get the call from my GM, 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. He said, hey, I just traded you to Houston, Texas. And then bang, things started moving quick again. I had to pack a bag, get down there, do physicals, and that ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Facts. And that's what I was going to have you talk about, the feeling of you being traded, because you already talked a little bit about it, just saying that you already kind of felt it coming just because they felt that from a business perspective, they couldn't rely on you. Just because of the injuries. They got guys coming in, they got fresh bodies, so they got to make sure that they're relying on what they can rely on before they put Cash back in that position. So you feeling, that was already coming, and then it did happen. The GM called you being traded to Houston. How did you feel being traded, and then what was your mental like going into Houston, saying how you're going to attack it?
So I'm gonna go back a little bit. Like going through all those injuries, having the highs and lows of I'm I'm a starter. I'm not a starter. I'm fighting through injuries. How does the team view me? How is the league viewing me? That wore me out mentally, and especially being in New York, like ground zero for COVID.
Yep.
I can't be around anyone. Like, it was tough. Like, I was kind of in a dark place. It got to a point where it was like, hey, you can't be in the building around your teammates because we don't want to risk our IR guys to the rest of the team or coaches. Because if you guys get sick and you get one of our players sick, like that's can derail the roster a little bit. And it became one of those things where like 10 a.m. I'd show up, do my rehab and workouts, and then go home. So I was in the building for a couple hours a day, and then the rest I had to sit in my 750 square foot one bed apartment out on the East Coast all day. Can't see anyone, can't be around my teammates, dealing with the fact that, I may not have a job the next year because I'm not healthy. Like, it kind of made me resent and hate the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was like I've put so much into it.
Yep.
I have worked so hard to get here.
Yep.
And
it's like what the game is giving you back. It's like,
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
it's like, and it was hard not to, keep saying like, why is this happening to me, and feeling sorry for myself. But I remember having a conversation with a guy named Jeff Warner, who he trained me to get me ready for college football and kind of been a mentor for me. And we had a lot of long conversations, and he just talked about how, like, God always has a plan, and sometimes he gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers, and that stuck with me, and I just kept it in my heart that, like, this ain't nothing new to me. I've faced so much adversity, jumped over so many hurdles, and I just got to keep doing that. And so when I got traded to Houston, it honestly was great. I was, a little nervous, but I was excited because I'm like, this is a new opportunity for me. It's a team that wants me, sees value in me.
Yep.
If they're trading for me, giving up a draft pick.
Yep.
And once I got there, like, I just felt the love from them. Like, they definitely were invested in me. They wanted to help me. They were concerned about the injuries, but they had a plan.
Yep.
And when I got there, Houston's the reason why I've been able to have more success and stay healthy in the league now, is because I learned so much from their performance staff. I started implementing a program that was specifically for me.
Is this off season?
This was off season going into
Yep.
the season,
Yep.
but it was crazy, man. They were like taping me, running, doing workouts, and showing me like, Cash, you're such a powerful, explosive, strong individual, but you're not like an Olympic track star where you're sprinting and like your body is so relaxed while you're running. Like you put so much stress and tension on your body that you have to do extra soft tissue work. You need to be doing this and that. And I put my trust into them, and it worked. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always believed, is when people started writing me off, like, I can't stay healthy, I can't be somebody that is a key player on defense for a team. I always believed I could, because it was just a matter of fact is, can I stay healthy? And if I can stay healthy, I'm going to show teams why I belong.
Yep. And before I go into some of the recognition with your season that you had with Houston, that off-season approach, does that, I'm assuming it does, but does that stick with you even though that you're not with Houston anymore? I'm probably jumping the gun right now before we get there, but I just want to know, as you're talking to other athletes too, who probably, might be going through the same thing as you, they're trying to get healthy, trying to find what key off-season approach should I take just to get back in my groove. I kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about that to any of the guys that might be watching this, about, any advice you could probably give towards that.
What I learned in Houston, I still do today. I do it damn near before every day when I'm training in the off season, when I'm in the Vikings building.
Yep.
I'm doing it before practice. I do it before games, and it works for me. Everybody's got their own routine because everybody's body is different.
Yep.
Everybody's play style is different. I will say though, like it's a learning curve though, because you're working against time. You're an athlete. Like every year, you're getting older, and that's not good when you're an athlete because your athleticism and your skills, your talent, like it declines. But as your body changes, you have to fit the needs.
Exactly.
And I've had shoulder surgery, so I have to do more maintenance for my shoulders. But somebody that never had shoulder issues doesn't necessarily need to do that, but they might have knee issues. So you have to put more attention. Yeah. So as your body breaks down and you have injuries. It's a game of football. Like it's a physical game. You're gonna have injuries. Like you have to structure your routine to get your body right to fit the needs.
Thanks.
And it took me some time to figure that out. And part of that was just not having the knowledge or information that I got once I was in Houston.
Yep.
Because they were on it, and I mean they had like an individual plan for almost every player, and like that just shows the importance though that the Texans put on the health of their players. And the truth is, like a lot of guys coming from college, like your body is young and resilient.
Exactly.
You don't need to do too much.
Exactly.
But as you get older and you're playing a very physical game, like you have to have a good plan that's specific to you.
Facts. Yeah, thank you for talking about that, brother. And random thought I have in my mind. Were you when you were in Houston? Was Murray there? Eric Murray there?
Oh yeah,
he was there. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if he was there. So it's a few guys I was talking to Dawson about too. A few guys that you've played with. So Jermaine Johnson played with him at Indy, and then Quincy Williams played with him at Murray State. So it's a few guys that we definitely crossed paths with. And then so back to the Texans, man. Cash had one of his best seasons with the Houston Texans. In one of the games that you stood out in 2023, I think it might have been Week 6 against the Saints. Cash was able to kind of receive the AFC Player of the Week, and I think, if I can remember correctly from that stat line, I think you had like a total of 15 tackles, maybe that game, and maybe like
16. But yeah.
16. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. And a few PBUs from what I read. But yeah, man, that recognition, and then also this was the transition of getting, which you could talk a little bit about, of getting moved to Mike. So you were playing outside, you were playing Will, but you are now getting moved to Mike. We talked a little bit about when I ran into you a minute ago. But that comes with, a lot of responsibility, even with sometimes when I'm watching the games and I'm watching you at Mike and I see you doing this, I'm like, oh, he getting the calls. Like he's calling the plays. So but before I jump to that, you got moved to Mike with Houston, and then you had a career high of 19 tackles. I can't remember who that was against, but I know Arizona.
Yeah.
Got it. You had a career high with 19 tackles. But kind of talk a little bit about, that season with Houston. You had one of your best seasons with Houston. You got moved to Mike. Was the feel from getting moved to Will to Mike, was that just like this is where I need to be?
It was a unique position for me and any player to be in, because I went into the year and they saw me as a special teams guy, but also like a starting Sam linebacker. But as a starting Sam, like you're only playing on base defense, which is nowadays you're probably playing at most 30 snaps a game.
Yep.
Because offenses like this go smaller personnel, get speed on the field, and spread the field out and throw the ball around. So you usually have nickel in. But we had a lot of younger linebackers in Houston, and everybody's trying to figure out D'Amico Ryan's defense. And where I kind of benefited was the same defense that Robert Saleh ran my third year in New York. It was the exact same defense that D'Amico runs. It's all that West Coast from San Francisco.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking like the calls for damn near the same, like word for word, like verbatim. And so the recall I had and just remembering everything, like I think gave me
faster.
a leg up. And so I was able to, you know, understand the scheme completely, which allowed me to focus on the smaller details and techniques within it, or which requires like how you play in it. And you know, I just started owning whatever role that they had. So I might have been a Sam and third down Will, or I might have been the Will linebacker and third down Mike or something. And wherever I could be on the field the longest, like I was going to do my best. And I think the coaches started to see that, recognize that when I was in, even if I was playing half the snaps, like I was playing well, and I was making key splash plays, and it was one of those things where we got to get this guy on the field more. So I remember it was a Thursday practice, and D'Amico's like, "Hey, let's throw you in at Mike." I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, I haven't ran any Mike in this defense really." He's like, "You know it, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I know it." And he's like, "All right, go in there and do it." And so I went in there, and after like 4 or 5 reps, I kind of looked in the side like, he's going to be taking me out. And he just kind of gave me one of these, like, stay in there. And I started finding my groove, and the coaches and D'Amico, like, they coached me hard. Don't get me wrong, they coached me hard, because in that defense, I mean, that's why Fred Warner's paid so damn much. There's a lot of responsibility on the mic, but I loved it. I loved being in the middle of the field. I felt like I was in on every play. And sure enough, like as the season went on, I just continued to get more confident and comfortable there, and you know, played really well.
Facts. And I believe you signed a 1-year contract with Houston, and then after that year, you became a free agent, correct?
Correct.
And you know, now we're coming. You know, we're here in the state of Minnesota. I kind of wanted you to talk about, you know, you signing that 3-year with the Vikings. Like, you were able to play. You're a Minnesota native. You went to the biggest college in the, you know, here in Minnesota, and now you're able to play for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, talk a little bit about that feeling and just what that meant to you and probably your family as well.
Well, I think my family was more excited than anybody, but definitely a full circle moment.
Yep.
It's great to be back home. Obviously, it's what I'm familiar with, and you know, these are where my roots are.
Yep.
I've always had an interest in the Vikings organization, though. Obviously, I've always followed them living here, but I felt like no matter who was on their roster, who was coaching the team, it's always been a tough, competitive team. They're always, towards the end of the year, fighting for a playoff spot, if not in the playoffs. And that's what attracted me, was the culture here. And so when, you know, I found out the Vikings were interested, like, it kind of became one of those things where I'm telling my agent, like, I don't want to hear from any other team. Like, let's get this deal done with Minnesota. And, you know, it's been an absolute blast being here. You know, the season we had was great, but, you know, talk about like the responsibility of like getting to a point of success where you have a lot more on your shoulders. Like, I definitely felt that coming back to Minnesota, because I'm like, damn, like, they're bringing me in. I'm the green dot Mike linebacker. You know, we have a good team. Everybody knows me. Like, it's like I can't let the team down. I can't let the fans down. I can't let the state down. Like, I almost felt like it needed to be like one of those things where everything had to go perfect, and which kind of stressed me out. But like, again, the culture with the Vikings and the people that are in the building just, you know, make you feel so comfortable and welcome, and it's a family, and that kind of like relaxed and eased like some of the feelings and emotions that I had coming here. And you know, it's one of those things now where it's like, if I could draw it up perfectly, like, I'd love to one day sign another extension with the Vikings and retire as a Viking right off in the sunset. If I could draw it up perfectly. Now, it's a business, so you never know what's going to happen, but like, that's how much I love it here.
That'd be an elite story, man. Just to be a kid that grew up here, that would be so much of an elite story. I'm definitely, hoping that for you. And again, like Cass, this would be going into is this your 6th season?
7.
7.
It's gone by quick.
So it's gone by quick, but that's, man, just to be 7 years in the league, you know how much of a blessing that is. You've been doing a lot of, even with your, obstacles that you got through with your injuries, man, like that's still a big, what do I want to say? Like just a big accomplishment and a big accolade, because you've done a lot of things that a lot of us guys that you play with, we wish, and we just like, man, we really thankful to be playing with a guy or have played with a guy like that just in college or maybe 1 year in the league, but you still doing it. That means a lot. And yeah, man, that's just crazy. And again, that's why I say, man, it's just crazy for you to be on a platform, because I really do appreciate you, talking about, your journey and your adversity. But just to pivot a little bit, talking a little bit about, leadership and community impact. Kind of want to talk a little bit about personal growth and the importance around that. I wanted to ask you about, how has your leadership skills evolved? Of course, we talked a lot about on the field, but how has it evolved off the field? So just to probably tee it up a little bit more, some of the things that I think about is family, like our parents, our teammates that we play with, and even what was another thing that I was thinking about? And coaches, how has that developed you as a man, as a husband, as a whatever it may be? Just kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about, some of those leadership skills and how they've evolved over time from you being young Cass to now.
Well, there's a lot of people to, thank for not only getting me into the position I am now in my career, but just making me the person I am. And, it's leadership is one of those things where I think as an athlete, it's always important to demonstrate by example.
Yep.
You can't be preaching one thing about working hard, but then you're a guy that, takes reps off all the time in practice. But also with leadership, it can come in many different forms, but like definitely if you're looked at as, like for me as a in football, Mike linebacker, like I have to make sure that the 10 other guys on the field are getting the call and knowing what's going on.
Yep.
And, you kind of have to be the vocal point of the defense. So for me, in my professional career, like that's where I've had to grow a lot, is just being more vocal. I've always been a guy that I feel like works hard and demonstrates by example, but when you're put into a position where you have to be the guy, like that comes with more responsibility. Exactly. But it's good to be put in positions, and that's, you talk about people that would be listening, or young people, like that's where it's important to challenge yourself as an individual and always put yourself in uncomfortable positions, because that's where you grow the most.
Yep.
Off the field though, like especially being back home, like, we all looked up to professional athletes growing up. Both of us, like we all had, star players that, they were doing their thing on the field or on the court or whatever, but they're also making an impact in the community. And, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's a community event or you're just out to eat at a restaurant with friends or family, like you always have to be mindful of how you're acting, what you're saying, what's your behavior, how you carry yourself, because, everybody looks up to you, and you're a role model to so many people, whether you know it or not. So you always have to be thinking about that, no matter what you're doing.
Facts. And one more thing I wanted to ask you about on this topic as well, just, what does giving back, look like for you, I guess, around, like youth programs or any initiatives your team may have in place for you? I just kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about that and how that kind of resonates in you being the authentic you. Of course, as an athlete, you probably know you got to do it. It's, it's something that that will speak, volumes to the community. But I can just tell my audience, like, Cass is very authentic. Nothing about him is flaw or fake, but I kind of wanted you to talk about just being your authentic self, and how does giving back look for you?
I like to give back in many different ways. I like to get involved with, many different programs, kind of diversify it all.
Yep.
I think that's really important because then you're able to connect with so many different kinds of people.
Yep.
But, it's funny being back home. Like, I'm still doing some of the same stuff that, we did in college. So I think the last community event I did was on Valentine's Day. I went over to the Children's Hospital, and there is strong ties between the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Go for Football program. So I remember, I think I was with Antonio Chenault and Rashad Still. I got a picture of us in our jerseys. We're in the in a room at the Children's Hospital talking to some kid, and now I'm doing that with my Vikings teammates. So it's a full circle, cool moment. But I like to do that. I got a buddy that works at this youth community center in North Minneapolis, and in the summer I go over there and I just hang out with the kids, man. It's funny hanging out with them because it's like you see so much of yourself in them at a young age. All they want to do is talk smack about who can win in Madden, or they want to throw the football around. And I'll be all-time quarterback, but it's funny to see how some of these kids, how competitive they are. And like that was me on the playground at recess, you know. But I just think as it goes back to as an athlete, being a professional football player for a state that there's so much love for the Minnesota Vikings. It's such a strong fan base here that to be engaged with the community and with so many different kinds of people, it makes a long-lasting impact, and that's probably what I take away the most. And what is so special to me is when you have, a kid's mom come up to you and she's almost in tears just talking about how much this means to them and their family. Like that's the most rewarding part about it, is just the real authentic impact it has on these people, on these families.
Facts. And as we're nearing close, I wanted to ask you too. You definitely are a professional athlete that's at the top of their game, but I wanted to ask you just about thoughts around just, any other hobbies, future aspirations when it comes to making sure that you continue to find and move with purpose when it comes to like redefining after sports. You're not there yet, but of course you have a team in places to make sure that you're involved in many different things. And I kind of want to ask you, is there anything that you kind of, could see yourself doing just outside of the game, or something that you might be currently doing it right now, building that. So I just wanted to ask you, because it's a lot of audience that we have former athletes, we got current athletes, but we got a lot of people outside of the athlete world too, who just likes to hear from people of your magnitude as well. So
no, that's a great question. I love the question because, I remember being a rookie and this guy named Brandon Copeland, he's played like 11 years in the league. I mean, he's just an extraordinary, amazing human being, like does it all. Like he did the damn thing playing, but he does so much outside of football. And, he's the ultimate pro and somebody that I look up to and people should strive to be like. But I remember as a rookie, he said, like, it's important as a professional athlete to have a plan when you're done. It's easy to lose yourself in your sport. That becomes kind of your identity. And playing a sport for as long as I have, like, you're never going to get something like that once you're done. I'm sure maybe you've even experienced it a little bit once you got done playing college ball. But I do think about it regularly. I would like to stay involved somewhat in sports.
Of course.
Maybe more towards the youth side. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but I do enjoy working with young athletes. And, it'd be fun to be a part of their development and growth, not only on the athletic or sports side, but as a human being, because I do think people grow so much through athletics.
Facts.
And you learn so much, and there's so many life skills you can take away from it. I have thought about maybe working in a sports agency, but not necessarily as an agent, like on the contract side, business side, but on the marketing side.
Thanks.
So you can help players with their off the field goals. You know, I went to school for business marketing, so maybe utilize that one day. And then, you know, right now, you know, I do kind of believe sometimes you got to keep the main thing. So let's focus on ball right now. But doesn't mean I'm not going to explore opportunities. So, you know, now I'm kind of interested in real estate a little bit. I think it's always something that is good for people to own, whether it's buildings, land, like it's always going to be valuable.
Yep.
And now I'm somebody that I kind of like blue collar work. I love working on houses, you know, renovations, remodeling, something I kind of grew up doing. So, you know, it's very rewarding work. So that's something that's always intrigued my interest.
Facts, man. Powerful words from Cash, and I think I'm gonna let you kind of end off with, you know, giving some closing advice around setbacks, possibly, you know, having doubts around your path, whether it's through football or anything, just kind of in life, and just overcoming those obstacles. I kind of wanted you to have some of the closing advice around that, because again, this whole journey was just running into setbacks, figuring out, like, is this path really gonna pan out how I want it to, and then overcoming that and being where you're currently at right now. So I just kind of wanted you to give some advice to the people out there.
Yeah. You know, with my journey, I feel like there's so much I could talk about, but again, like, you know, anything that's, you know, worth doing to get to, you know, your peak of success, like it's never going to come easy, and you have to understand that once you know, set your goals. But you can't cheat the process. You can't cut corners. You know, that's, I think, how you quickly will end up disappointed. So I think the main thing is, like, anything you're trying to achieve, like, put a plan in place and then take that first step or hit that first domino over, because oftentimes in life people have all these aspirations, but they don't take any action, and maybe that's because they're scared to fail. Yeah. I've failed so much in my life. I've had very high moments, and then I feel like I'm taking steps back, and you know, that failure can come in a lot of different forms, but you're going to grow through those moments. You're going to learn so much about what you're doing, about yourself, and it's all going to be valuable experiences that, you know, ultimately will propel you to get to where you want to be. And one of my first tattoos I got on my arm, it's always bet on yourself. It's what I did. So when it, you know, comes down to it, especially if you're like an athlete, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, it could be your podcast. Like, there's people that, you know, are always going to, you know, throw shade, hate, and say you can't do this. You're not going to get to where you want to be. But, like, as long as you put all your chips on the table, you bet on yourself, because you know what you're about.
Exactly.
You know, like, what your work ethic is and what your discipline and determination is. Like, no one can stop you.
Facts, man. Well, definitely appreciate you for being on the podcast, man. Make sure you guys tap in. You could catch the, you know, some of the reels on Instagram at Perfected Progression. Definitely catch, you know, Cash on Instagram as well. We'll drop everything. But again, man, this is definitely a big episode. I definitely appreciate Cash for hopping on, and shout out to One Gold Media as well. You know, they do a lot, you know, for the platform. And yeah, man, signing out, and hopefully you guys, you know, stay tuned. We got some more coming, and content will be dropping soon.